All right. Let me knock out. So we wanna y'all at home give Brother Craig a round of applause. I want to uh, let everyone know that we're not here just to talk. I want to give solutions after every speaker to make sure that as we give you more information about Project 2025, we're giving you solutions as well. So I'll have 10 solutions that by the time we're done with this thing. And the first solution, Brother Craig mentioned it, is we need to fully understand what he called the 6 pillars of empowerment. I don't care how good something sounds. I don't care how much sense it makes. I don't care how much the math lines up. Without those 6 pillars of empowerment, we're simply not going to make it, and it's not going to be successful. Whatever that thing is, and those 6 pillars are spirituality, right culture, education, economics, socioeconomics, and politics. Brother Craig and I used to do a show called the Revolutionary Code. Uh, it is on, it is on YouTube. I'm going to post the episode where we're talking about the 6 pillars, because we absolutely not only have to understand those 6 pillars, we have to make sure that those 6 pillars are a part of every single thing we do. Because without the first two, spirituality and right culture, it's not going to make it. The things that we do that we should be doing, we don't do because we don't have a spiritual connection with ourselves and higher power one another, and we don't have a culture that's about forward progress and survival to make sure that the black mind, body, and spirit is whole and moving forward. We have a culture that's about self-destruction, which is why our communities are the way that they are. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. That's the first solution. I'm going to give you 10. That's the first one. I posted our handout. Mine has writing on it. I posted our handout on my Facebook page. So as we go live, you can see this on the Facebook page. On the back side, there are solution 1 through 10. I want you to write the solutions down because, again, we're not just here to talk. We want to give you a solution that you can start implementing now because, like Brother Craig laid out, per Sister Stacy's question, we're behind, but the war isn't over. We still have a chance to turn this thing around in our favor, but talking is not going to do it. We got to get to work. And a part of what we want to accomplish here with this Project 2025 event is giving our people an understanding of how real Project 2025 is, how it's going to impact you as a black, brown, or poor grassroots person in this country, and more importantly, what we can do to push back against that. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker. She's going to come up and do her thing, and we're going to keep it moving. Sister Regina Gardner, a quote, distinguished advocate for children and families, end quote. Regina Gardner is a seasoned macro social worker and licensed educator, bringing over 26 years of dedicated service to the greater Houston area. Her career reflects an unwavering commitment to advocating for the rights and welfare of children and families, underscored by her extensive experience in both direct service and educational roles. Ms. Gardner began her impact journey with 12 years at the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, where she provided crucial direct services to children and families. Her hands-on work during this period involved navigating complex social systems, ensuring the safety and well-being of vulnerable populations, and fostering resilient family units. Transitioning from social services to education, Virginia spent the next 14 years as an early childhood educator. In this role, she shaped the foundation of learning experiences of young children, advocating for quality early education and nurturing the academic and social development of her students. Her dual expertise in social work and education uniquely positions her to address the multifaceted needs of children and their families. Currently, Regina serves as a governmental relations liaison. In this capacity, she collaborates with the Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees and a coalition of civic organizations to drive local policy initiatives aimed at enhancing the quality of education in the area schools. Her work involves strategic policy advocacy, stakeholder engagement, and fostering collaborative efforts to implement sustainable improvements in the education system. And lastly, Regina's career is characterized by her deep-rooted dedication to making a tangible difference in her community. Her extensive experience and proactive approach continue to inspire positive change, ensuring that the voices of children and families are heard and her needs are met. Before I turn this thing over to Sister Regina, I just want to remind everybody where we are because we love for you guys to come out because we have a very, very, very nice facility. Not enough bodies in here. So we are at the World Harvest Outreach Church. The address is 10,800 Scott Street, 77047. It's right next door to a larger church. We're not at that large church with the cars in the parking lot. We're at the small dome next to that large church. So if you have some time, come out and meet the speakers, meet people who are here to provide the solutions and services that we need as a community, and meet some new grassroots partners that are already putting in the work, that hopefully you yourself are willing to be a part of as we continue to put in this work, because of course no one is going to do this for us. And lastly, 99.9% of the Juneteenth events you're going to see are going to be about parties and celebrations and picnics and comedy shows and concerts and blah blah. All of it is about having a good time. We're not opposed to having a good time, but we got to keep in mind that, as Brother Craig said, we are most certainly at war. And most of our people don't even know we're at war, despite the fact that we're hundreds of years behind and we're surrounded on every front. So it's okay to have a good time, but can we do some work as well? Which is what this event is about. So with that, I introduce to you Sister Regina Gardner.
Hello, everybody. I was asked to speak on a part of the project 2025 that the GOP recently put out. It's about a 900-page plan that they plan to implement if they are successful at this upcoming election. And so I am going to be presenting on the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security. So first I want to start by just explaining what is the current purpose of that department. The National Military Establishment was created in 1947 by President Truman, after which it was renamed under the National Security Act amendments of 1949. So they made some amendments and they renamed the Department of Defense, which also established it as an executive department headed by the Secretary of Defense, which means it's a part of the President's cabinet. The Department of Defense is responsible for providing the military forces needed to protect the integrity of the nation's policies and programs, and for the security of the country. The major elements of those forces are the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force, that consists of about 1.3 million men and women on active duty today. All right, so the Department of Defense, the current purpose of that department, the main responsibility of that department is coordinating and supervising all agencies and functions of the U.S. government directly related to national security and the United States Armed Forces. How Project 2025 will change that department? Okay, so there are 4 ways that it's going to be changed, and that's number 1. It proposes to restore war fighting as its sole mission and making its highest priority to defeat the threat of the Chinese Communist Party. Number 2, it proposes dismantling the Department of Homeland Security and bringing its remit under defense. So they're just going to dismantle the Department of Homeland Security and then bring that under the Department of Defense. Number 3, it proposes that the Department of Defense will help with aggressively building the border wall system on America's southern border and deploy military personnel and hardware to prevent illegal crossings. So they're seriously, aggressively wanting to build the border wall. And then number 4, it calls for the U.S. Department of Defense to abolish its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. All right, so that was the Department of Defense. Now we're moving to the Department of Homeland Security, which comes up under the umbrella of the Department of Defense, right? So the current purpose of that department. The Department of Homeland Security was established by President George W. Bush on November 25th of 2002, okay? Take note of that year, November 25th, 2002. In the weeks following the September 11th attacks, as a standalone cabinet level department with the passage of the Homeland Security Act in Congress. 22 agencies were then combined under a single department. The agency first opened its doors on March 1st, 2003, with a common mission, which was to further coordinate and unify national homeland security efforts to safeguard the American people. And with the main responsibilities of number 1, public security, 2, anti-terrorism, 3, border security, 4, immigration and customs, 5, cybersecurity, and 6, disaster prevention and management. So the Department of Homeland Security, how will that project, the Project 2025, change the department? So here are the ways that the GOP plans to change that department. Number 1, it will dismantle the Department of Homeland Security. Number 2, it calls for the arrest, detention, and deportation of undocumented immigrants across the country. Number 3, it proposes deputizing local police, sheriffs, and the National Guard in red states, as well as agents of the ATF, which is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, right? And the DEA, which is the Drug Enforcement Administration, as immigration enforcement officers. So they're gonna kind of bring all these different agencies together and kind of like deputize them as immigration enforcement officers. These forces would then be deployed into the blue states. These forces will go around the country arresting illegal immigrants in large-scale raids, who would then be taken to large-scale staging grounds near the border, most likely in Texas, to be held in internment camps prior to deportation. Number 4, block federal financial aid for up to 2/3 of all American college students, right? If their state permits certain immigrant groups, including Dreamers with legal status, to assess in-state tuition. So all of those Dreamers that are going to college, they're gonna block the federal aid. 5, terminate the legal status of 500,000 Dreamers by eliminating staff time for reviewing and processing renewal applications. Number 6, they plan to bar U.S. citizens from qualifying for federal housing subsidies if they live with anyone who is not a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident. And then number 7, they want to force the states to share driver's license and taxpayer identification information with federal authorities or risk critical funding. All right, how these changes, this is the part that that I'm most passionate about, is how these changes will affect the lives of Black, brown, and grassroots people in this country. So number 1, just pulling from one of the statements that I thought was most important, was that they're going to dismantle the Department of Homeland Security. My opinion on that one is the department was formed in 2003, so I'm not saying it's not an important department, but that department, it hasn't been there that long, so I don't know that that's going to be a major setback for our community, right? Then the other bullet that I thought was concerning was it calls for the U.S. Department of Defense to abolish its diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. And, again, those diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives haven't been in place for so long, even though it could have been helpful to the community, but it's not like we really had a long time to get used to it, because they have been fighting against whatever the Democrats are doing, and so we knew that they were going to block that, especially in Texas. So the DOD, Department of Defense, and the Department of Homeland Security. I think I might have the sections here. So I want to say just a little bit about myself, right? I am an independent. So, I don't really rock with Democrats and I don't really rock with, Republicans in the current state that they're in because of the extremist factions in both of those parties. Both of those parties are out of balance. The left is too far left and the right is too far right. And so that's the issue that I have with that. So with that said, if I had to choose between these two factions for strategic purposes and for the betterment of my community right now, I would have to choose the GOP. And so I'll give you my reasons. Trust me, this is not anything that I want to do. I feel like as a Black person, being a part of a community that has really lost its way and has allowed a particular party to come in, set up shop, and take over the community. And we've allowed this to go on for so long. Now we're just sitting here like sitting ducks, very vulnerable. And we really don't have a lot of choices. That's why we're here at this meeting today, is so that we can have a discussion about and do some strategic planning around how are we going to respond to this project 2025. So, okay, so why? Reason one. So I definitely am not a fan of Trump, right? I don't like the Dems' extremist views, and I don't like the GOP's extremist views, but I do agree with the GOP on one point that I think is very important for my community. If I'm looking out for my community, the one thing I know is that we need to build the institution of family, right? That's the one thing that I can rock with, okay? So I view the family as the basic institutional building block of society. The management of the family as the training ground for building institutions of business and economy, institutions of government, and other sorely needed institutions in our community. So if you can manage to build a family and run a family and sustain a family, you can pretty much probably run anything. That being your training ground. So I think that that's an area that we really need to harken back to and to take seriously. I talk to a lot of young ladies and young men, and they, talk about different issues that they're having today. And plus I see the issues that go on back and forth online. And I just think that, male and female, they're like on opposite ends of the extreme too. They're not seeing eye to eye. And that's one of the most basic things that you can do in nature, right? For men and women, or male and female, to come together and procreate, like that's the most natural thing that you could ever do. So to say that we're struggling in that area, that's a big problem that I think that we need to address. So, and I know that the Democrat, everything that's undergirding their platform policies, everything has to do with feminism, postmodernism, Marxism, Afro-pessimism, and none of these things really serve to, support the family. So it's no surprise that a lot of our youth are very confused. They've gotten away from the village that we talk about, that some of the older people know about. And so that's a problem that we need to address. So reason two, why am I saying all of this? Reason two. So that we need an end to the hyperpolarization in America. One side needs a decisive win. So I don't care, because I don't like either one of these sides. So I just feel like one of these sides needs to have a decisive win, and whoever has the most power, the most money, whatever, they need to make the changes that are needed to bring about a level of unity within the country, so that we can start to have some semblance of stability And, we can work on just like Brother Craig was saying, we can begin to work, locally in small groups to just build family, build ourselves individually, right? Contribute to a family, those families contribute to a community, and then maybe we can run cities, right? So we don't build from the top up, we do build from the bottom, from the bottom up, and so that's one other reason. And then reason three, I like that they learned from being unprepared the first time Trump took off. So they prepared a plan and they're working to make changes on that plan. I know that when Trump was in there the first time, like he did never like fill all of his offices. Like they were left open. It was just real raggedy. So they're within this plan, they're working to interview people right now so that they can start on day one, so that they can bring their people in. And the other thing is that they have something in Washington. They have infrastructure with administrators that are like lifelong or career bureaucrat. So like, for instance, in in any department, the Department of Defense or Department of Homeland Security, there are people that make their careers, they've been there for 30 years or whatever, and they're considered experts. So that means that if a Republican wins the office or a Democrat wins the office, you have people who have been there, so there's a continuity of service, and you don't have this herky-jerky type of thing going on. So I believe that Trump is planning to remove all of those people because they just didn't fall in line with what he wanted. So I was told that those career bureaucrats started probably way back in the 1940s or something. So they've been doing that for quite a long time. So that in and of itself is going to be a real shock to our system. I don't trust either one of the parties, and pretty much this is just very risky because the Republicans, I mean, it's a lot that we're gonna be trusting them to do. You know what I'm saying? We don't know what the real plan we don't really know, but it's just that bad right now. So reason for our one-sided relationship with the Democrats has to end, and this is one way we can end it. By voting with other parties, whether it's a third party candidate, the Green Party, or the GOP, or whoever you choose to vote for, until they get the message and support the things that are vital to our success. So for the last 60 years, the Democrats have been playing a mind game on Black people and just getting our vote, but then not giving us anything back. So the only way that that's going to change is if we show them better than tell them that we're going to just be voting for somebody else. And so that's going to make the loudest statement. Our community is not organized. We don't have a lot of funds. And so, I mean, organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League, those have really been taken over by political interests and other corporations. So they're not representing the community like they used to. So we don't even have the money. But like Brother Craig was saying, we have one thing, and that is our vote. So we have to really be serious about being organized around a plan of how we're gonna vote as a block. So that's that point. So I don't know, does anybody have any, questions or comments about, this move? Yes, sir.
So I have two questions, and I'll ask the first one discuss
Mhm.
of the issues that you found, in your research as relates to the most alarming things they want to do for your two departments. Which one jumped out to you the most as possibly the most egregious things you've seen based on those two departments that you would say?
Well, just like I was saying, I think I'm not surprised by anything that they want to do. I mean, it's no secret that the conservatives have been saying they want to just slash everything and pretty much take us back to the late 1940s or 50s, right? They've shown, I mean, they've canceled out abortion pretty much here in Texas, and they've even taken a part out of our very important Voting Rights Act. So we know that they're trying to do that. In some instances, I see where it can help. It's gonna hurt though. It's gonna hurt because people today are so used to comfort, right? They're not the same as our ancestors, right? Our ancestors, you know, Harriet Tubman made a trip on foot, 100-mile trip to freedom 17 times, 2 times both ways, right? So just thinking of that, and then the tenacity of all of our ancestors and the things that the bus boycott, the Montgomery bus boycott was like 385 days. That's like over a year of people collaborating with each other to borrow a ride to get to work. I don't know if we have that same type of long suffering that we used to have. We don't even, you know, some of the church attendance is even waning, right? So I just think anything that these folks do is gonna cause suffering. But I am of the mindset that suffering is not always bad, because suffering sometimes brings about appreciation for the things that you've had, right? And for a lot of us that already is on the grind, and we grind anyway, I think we'll probably be okay. But for some of these people that's been just like laying in and sitting or laying around, it's not.
What do you think will happen to those?
I think it's gonna be just like the Great Depression.
Yeah.
I think that I have heard stories in my family where in these little enclaves of where Black people lived on the other side of the track, the way that they survived the Great Depression, there was no food. So they raised their own cattle, they raised their own crops, and then they shared.
Right.
They took care of each other.
Yeah.
Right. So when one person slaughtered a calf or a cow or whatever, they made sure that the community, everybody got a piece.
That's right.
Right? And so that's real community. And we don't know, we haven't known anything like that for a very long time. And so it's really gonna shock the system. And I hate to say it, I mean, the Democrats seem to always want to offer a pie in the sky and something that's easy to help, something that brings comfort, but that's not all the way. That's not always the right way to do things. And I'm not saying that totally just jerking up the carpet from under people is the right thing either, but you know, that's what happens when you poke the bear. Right. Oh, I wanted to tell y'all about this this thing that happened. Brother Craig brought this to my mind when he was talking about the sudden change with the GOP. So there's this lady, I used to work with her at CPS. So when they started that whole disproportionality, you know, looking at the data to see how Black people were being impacted, like for CPS, you know, we are disproportionate, our children are disproportionately represented in foster care, okay? We are disproportionately represented in the prison system. We disproportionately fail in school and all these types of things, right? So she had a plan and a program that she was commissioned through the state of Texas to go in and have and go into all of these systems, go into every state agency that they had here in the state of Texas and do almost like cultural relevance training. Benicia was she was sitting on that committee when they just did that back in, it was in the 1990s. And so everything was going really well. She was making a lot of headway. And then when the data came out, she saw that things were changing. Like the data, the disproportionality rates were going down. And then guess what happened? The GOP was going along with it because, you know, that's on the state budget. You know, her little committee and everything, they were on the state budget. When they found out that her project was being supported by the Democrats with that whole feminism, Marxism, postmodernism, all of these different things that they despise, they pulled the plug on everything she was doing. So I'm saying that to say that we have to watch who we dealing with. And we have to ask questions, and we have to make some demands, because that whole program that they're running over there at the Democratic Party, that don't have nothing to do with us. That whole Black Lives Matter movement, it was just something they threw together. You know, I hate to say it, but it was something that they wanted. It was not anything they came out and posed the grassroots Black community and said, hey, what y'all want? They said, hey, this is what we're interested in. We're interested in feminism and LGBTQ rights and things of that nature. About 3 years ago, I applied to be on the platform committee for the Democratic Party. And this was during the pandemic, because I remember we had to do everything online. So when I got there, you know, I had done a little research and I had looked at the platform from before. And the only two groups that they had on that platform that year was women and LGBTQ. So the first question I asked when I got there was, where's Black community? And so, you know, the lady, she kind of stuttered a little bit, and then she was like, well, you know, we didn't want to write it for you guys. And in a way, she was basically saying, well, y'all don't show up.
Right.
And we don't.
Right.
Because that year, the council member, Jeffrey Boney from Missouri City, he was on the committee, I was on the committee. It was just like a handful of us. And then we were all separated on different committee, you know, different platform areas. And so that year, the Black community got on the platform. So did the Hispanic community, the Asian community, because it was somebody representing everybody that year. And so we didn't have to make too big of a fuss about it. But I was like, we vote for y'all 91%. Y'all, I mean, all they did, they just had women and they had LGBT. They could have put the Black community, right? Or Black issues or something, or minority issues or something. They have, right? And hey, it's just really, I'm not even trying to be mad at these people, because it's human nature to look out for self. That's just a part of human nature. So these people are on there, they doing work for their community. If we don't show up, the work is not gonna get done. So just to wind up what I'm saying, you know, I've been working with different groups across the city. And what we're planning to do, we started this thing called the Education Think Tank. And it's geared around education because that's where our kids are. It's the center point of the community as far as I'm concerned. And so we have been meeting and just having discussions about policy. And so I'll continue to meet with them. We haven't had any meetings in a while, but I've continued to meet
Oh, no,
with
that's
the
actually
folks that
tomorrow.
show up for that meeting. And they
That
were
was
just
just
saying,
something.
you know, we have a plan.
Just,
We have some people who are interested in working with the Republican Party. And for those people that are interested, we want to allow them to work with them so that we have a common communication line, so we know what they're doing, who's doing what. We can have established relationships with people on that side of the aisle, because for instance, there was an issue with our schools out in Fort Bend, Houston, and we needed to talk to Senator Bettencourt. So I don't know Senator Bettencourt. He's a Republican. I heard about him. He used to be the tax collector for Harris County. But I used the network connection who knows people in the Republican Party, and we got a meeting set up with this guy, and that meeting is helping us advocate in our area. Because having a letter signed from this guy, and it was not easy to get that letter. I'm gonna let y'all know that right now. So when we finally got that letter, he is a big part of Texas politics, especially when it comes to school board. I don't know if y'all heard, our school board superintendent got fired, and he was a big part of that. So just having that letter, for whatever it's worth, is something that we need to be doing. But then we also need to have people, and it's not so hard to have people, because we have a pretty good infrastructure already on the Democratic Party side. It's just the people on the Democrats, they're so brainwashed and so sold out that you can't get them to hold the party accountable for change, if that makes sense. So that's the hard part on the left side. The part on the right side is kind of new, we got one of the guy that sits on the board at Texas Southern. He works with the Texas Policy Foundation, which is supported by, the GOP. And so there's another contact. So we're working on building the infrastructure on both sides, and we'll just see what happens. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I want to make sure no one has a second verse before. What?
Oh.
You said the Democrats offer pie in the sky, as opposed to the GOP who offers, it strengthens the hand of the group that is totally against us, will kill, destroy. We understand that. While we know both groups do, I like one who's less aggressive and isn't trying to return me back to the depression. I don't know. Can you explain? I don't understand how choosing the more aggressive, constraining one is better than the one that at least allows you some freedom. Like it sounds like we're wanting them to do something that we don't do for ourselves. Like, what are they doing for us? Like, I think that's a weak position. I think it's an ignorant position. I think it's like, damn, are we not able? Like, wow. At some point, you said, they're looking out for themselves. Well, what's wrong with us? So, are the Democrats a problem? Or can we have the liberty to flow more freely over there as opposed to there?
Well, what I'll say about that is, everything to me that glitters ain't gold. And I feel like we've been voting 90% for this party for 60 years, and we don't have anything to show for it. As a matter of fact, when you look at the data, it's just like this conversation that they're having right now with this guy, Byron Donalds, and I don't like him, right? And then they have Joy Reid, she interviewed him. I don't like either one of them, right? But just on the merits, he made a statement. He said, we had more stable Black families back in the Jim Crow time. And so he was again focusing on family, right? And saying, how do we get that family formation back? And he was saying, Black people seem to have a desire to do that, because if you look at the data was good back in the 40s and the 50s, right? Then we went into a steep decline in the probably within the 70s and 80s, a very steep decline. But then he said recently it's been tipping up. So a lot of Black men and women apparently are looking at the past and saying, wow, what's going on? We're missing so many fathers, right? So there are people who are recommitted to the family. So what happened was, when they interviewed this guy, they beat him up about, oh, well, you said Jim Crow. Look, why you said, why did you mention anything about anything that happened in Jim Crow? That was a bad time for us. So why did you even, and so he was like, dang, like, I wasn't even talking about Jim Crow. I was talking about the family and how we can build that back. And I just mentioned the time period. I just said that's when it was, right? So the thing you have to understand about the Democratic Party, they just want to control us. They want to say anything that's gonna ruffle our feathers and touch our sensitivities about racism, so that they could keep us in an emotional state, so that we hate the GOP so much that we won't vote for them, and we're gonna cast that vote. Because why? Because they want to stay in power. Okay? And here's the other thing. No, I'm gonna tell you something else. I understand, I know that how we feel about the GOP, and we feel like they hate us, right? The other thing about them is that with all of their philosophies that go against the family, they are destroying our culture. They are literally the culture that I grew up in. Okay, so we had the village, right? Coming out of the late 60s, early 70s, you couldn't tell Black people that they wasn't like the best. We thought we was the best at everything. We just came out of civil rights. We had a win, right? Thurgood Marshall had won Brown versus Board of Education. Now we know about the hidden figures and what was going on with them during the 1960s, right? Whole room of human computers, right? So, and then who else? We were just making so many different strides in music and entertainment and sports, right? During that time, Black people was like, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, and they were proud of who they are. Today, it's like they're ashamed of who they are. And I feel that that is directly in line with the philosophies of that party.
So let me sum this up. We gotta move on. So, what I think from what she's saying is that the plans that the Republicans have presented, it has some good things in it that we can use. But we can never, ever depend on either party
Right.
to do for us or to do for ourselves. Which is why what Craig said, which is what I appreciate.
Hmm?
We gotta kill it. We gotta be. But we can't.
Yes. Is it moving? Is live?
I don't know. It's kind of big.
I got a recording. I need to stop it when it gets to the end. But yeah. Okay, so here, come here.
So where we are right
Come here.
now.
Listen to this. When the sister walks off, click stop. Click no. When she goes off, say end the recording. It's 2 steps to the just call me when she's about to pull out.
It's on my bed on some clothes. I don't know what type of burger it is. It's kind of big.
Okay, come on, she's about to pull out.
That scared me. It's on my bed. On my clothes.
Who are willing
On the
to
right
knock
side.
on every door, have a conversation with every family, and let them know.
Like move to your left.
And get them
See
to
it?
vote for candidates that we're running. There's no magic wand. There's no big grand scheme. It's very simple. But until we get the people who are willing to.
So just call. I'll find the book. Call me when she's up.
So brother, Kamani,
Don't touch it. Just call me when she's
I'm
up.
gonna catch you. I just wanna say this real
Okay.
quick. See, we're looking at this thing all wrong.
I don't know.
Democrat, Republican, that's business. That don't have nothing to do with
Yeah, I
that.
thought it was a cricket.
We gotta have something here, when he's talking about that independent party, that encapsulates our culture, our families, and who we are as people, and then have an agenda as to what we need to help us. We haven't had that at all since the civil rights movement. So that's the missing piece right there. The missing
You
piece
kill it,
is
Daddy?
us. Now, like I said, then we negotiate with the GOP.
What's going on?
We negotiate
What's going on?
with the Democratic Party.
We can't do it. We don't
Hey,
have those
watch the
laws.
photos. Thank you,
Right.
baby.
The negotiation.
She didn't go get it.
She's still standing there.
Appreciate you.
If you're not ordered.
Thank you.
This is
Word.
business. This don't have nothing to
Gotcha.
do with life. It
That's
don't
what I'm
have
okay.
nothing to do, because none of these people don't like us.
That's right.
They don't care at all. The Democrats or the Republicans, they don't. The only difference is the Democrats are more of like, I'll give you a fish party. And the GOP is like, I'm gonna teach you how to fish. Like you gonna have to make it from scratch, but it's gonna be better for you because it's gonna be yours when you finish with it. You understand? As opposed to, well, I'm gonna fix up this program and then you come and get your COVID fees, you know, your COVID check or whatever. Now what happened when the COVID check goes? That's all I'm saying. So it's a hard pill to swallow, and I know people don't like it and they don't want to swallow it, but hey, that's what's up.
So we got one more question for you.
Okay.
They were talking about the GOP and one side and the other side, and basically choosing the lesser of two evils, right?
Right.
And then you had stated that in the GOP, DOD was, gonna dismantle the DEA, all these things, to go to the border and start rounding up people south or whoever is illegal, quote unquote. Now that directly affects my people. And I think that wanting to say, well, I'm gonna go with them because they're the lesser. What about us? Because the SB4 law here in Texas that I've been passed, it's literally giving law enforcement the right to racially profile us, lock us up with nothing, just because of the color of our skin, because we look like we're Latin, Hispanic, whatever. It's crazy to me. The Chicano people are a great majority of votes in this country. And we are working, personally, the Berets are working on waking up our people, because our people are a very complacent people. We work, we go home. That's it. We grind it out. We're doing the jobs nobody wants to do in these fields. We're busting our butts in this heat. You got your landscapers, you got all these people that know, and loteros, all of them. So those laws directly affect my people. So to say I would choose them over this party, it's like a slap in our face. Because we're fighting every day.
So,
It's hard because it is two evils. I don't want to respond.
Okay, wait. Keep in mind, got other speakers, people gotta eat lunch. So if you're going to respond, make your response quick, please make it concise. We got 6 other speakers, all of whom, please don't over 10 minutes. I know Brother Craig set a bad precedent. Please remember your 10 minutes, because we got a lot of people that get you. Very valid question.
Very bad.
Answer her question. Sister, you gonna reply? Or you know, I know you about that also. I'm not saying you have to. I know you going.
No, I was just gonna say that that's something that I'm gonna talk about.
Okay. All right. So she's gonna answer you.
Kind of add to that,
Yeah. I'm
but,
just gonna reply.
the problem is, it's just as she said.
Wait. You answer now. You answer later.
Well, let's add to it when I talk.
Good. Hey, come on. Answer her question real quick, then I'm gonna answer you.
So I was just gonna say, yeah, okay. Because of the lack of planning, lack of action for the last 60 years for African Americans and even Latinos, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have any systems in place in our community. So we've been living under a facade anyway, right? We just been going on clubbing and partying and everything. We're all at risk. These people could be planning to put us back on in slavery, for all we know. They took away from the Voting Rights Act, right? So we're vulnerable because we haven't been planning or doing anything. And so it's very upsetting. But my thing is, how do we get people to be serious minded and stop playing? I just want my people to stop playing, that's all. And I don't know, and I know how they are. As long as the Democrats keep giving them a little and keep them, they'll go with that. Until something comes to really shake them up, they're not gonna be shook.
So that's how we gonna stop people from playing. You gonna put them in chains?
I didn't say.
Hold on now. Listen to me. Let's get it down short. Listen to me now. We like Regina said. Regina did say, our people, black, brown, and poor white people, we don't pay attention to shit. We're not paying attention. So of course, we don't want to put our people in chains. However, the people who are creating the system to put them in chains, they're not playing games. They're moving. So what we're saying, now we're dealing with issues that are going to change the lives of this generation and every generation to follow. I've been marketing this thing for almost a full 6 weeks. We got less than 25 minutes. So those of us who are in here, we gotta find a way to get people that look like us to show the hell up. Like Sister Regina saying, stop being so lazy, stop playing and getting serious. So we have to go with this all 1,000 days document. Mind, this is the first step of what we gotta do. Sister Regina, Brother Chance, Brother Shevin, Sister Deirdre, Brother Craig. We have to, I got to assign you guys chapters to go through, because we got to respond. Dude, it's tough as hell. Just brilliant. You know, I got to get him to break down a chapter so we can create an intelligent response. So we can take it to our people and respond. But like Brother Craig was saying, if we don't have people who are willing to go knock on the doors to explain what the hell this thing is, and then give them our response, we gonna be that exchange.
That's right.
So we have to understand when they're putting out, take out the good, say this bad is something, yeah.
Right.
But then give our people something to bring the bad. Because they gonna do what they gonna do.
And then say if Trump doesn't win.
And that's what
Right.
it don't matter.
So if Biden win, at some point, those Republicans are gonna win. And when they win, they got their plan already ready.
And
So
then,
I'm
when they don't win,
the type of person, I'm like, bring it, just bring it.
even when they don't win,
You know,
they have Democrats to still do their thing. Which is the part of the problem, which is why we gotta have our own.
This status quo for the last 50 years, it ain't working. It ain't
We're gonna
working.
have our own.
So,
We're gonna make something so we can prevent change. But sometimes, some people need to change because they're not.
look at
Like, brother, I ain't.
I don't want my kids. I don't want them to. Oh, thank you. Oh,
I'm
you-
gonna come back to it. Let me, you know, all right.
thank you.